Welcome to Additional Pylons Games. Today, we're going to cover the basics of being a Frontline Freelancer in Atlas Reactor. This beginner's guide was created during Season 2 of Atlas Reactor, so the freelancers we discussed may have changed since this video, and there's probably a few more Frontline Freelancers in the game, or soon to be. Despite this, I'll be covering some timeless principles of being a tank in the world of Atlas Reactor. When you're done with this video, be sure to check out my firepower and support guides to learn the best principles about those freelancers as well as my individual freelancer guides. First, we need to break down the general archetypes that frontliners fall into. Each frontliner falls somewhere on the spectrum of recovery to mitigation and from aggressor to defender. Keep two principles in mind as we discuss. First, mods can easily push some of the frontliners around on these spectrums. Second, characters may fall under one type of tank, yet still have a few abilities or effects of the other categories. These positions are starting points for frontline freelancers, not their permanent position. First, we have the health recovery tanks. They may have some damage mitigation in their kit or mods, but generally they rely on recovering health to keep them in the fight, rather than shields or weakening enemies. Rask and Phaedra are more heavily into this category, and Garrison is somewhat of a blend. Conversely, Asana, Rampart, and Bryn are more so damage mitigation tanks, with Titus again being a bit of a hybrid. Mitigation tanks favor damage prevention through weakening enemies, shielding themselves through shields or cover, or avoiding damage altogether. Next, we need to rate the tanks on how much of an aggressor or defender they tend to be. Again, some tanks lean heavily in one direction, while others are more hybrids, and even then, those positions can be changed through mods. Aggressor tanks are generally characterized by abilities that lend towards rapid dashing, slowing enemies, and disrupting the other team's ability to move and position. As of this recording, the aggressor tanks align heavily with the health recovery tanks. Rask, Phaedra, and Garrison are all aggressors, with Titus being the only aggressor tank that I didn't classify as a recovery tank. Defender tanks generally have abilities which lend toward protecting allies rather than antagonizing enemies. I've classified Bryn, Rampart, and Asana as defender frontline freelancers. Their abilities to block attacks, absorb damage, and disrupt enemy attacks all help to keep their allies alive, disrupting enemy plans in that sense. To summarize these categories, we have a nice spectrum of aggressor to defender and mitigator to recoverer. Rask and Phaedra are both heavily aggressive recovery tanks, while Asana, Bryn, and Rampart are defensive mitigators. Garrison and Titus both fall more towards the middle of the spectrum. Garrison is more of a jack-of-all-trades character, with some healing, mitigation, slowing, and such. Titus is the biggest anomaly at this time, with his kit being very aggressive and mobile, focusing on debuffing and higher damage output. Understanding these categories will help you craft a successful mod kit and playstyle for each frontliner, playing to their strengths and covering for any weaknesses. Use this knowledge to make decisions on the best tank for your playstyle and how you can use them to greatest effect. No matter which frontliner you choose, there are a few important do's and don'ts to keep in mind. Let's start with the don'ts. Oftentimes, the best way to improve your play is not to make better plays, but to make fewer bad plays. This is true across any game or sport, and Atlas Reactor is no exception. First, being a frontline tank does not mean that you're invincible. No matter how tough your character is, you shouldn't be jumping right into the middle of the map without cover or shields. There are times when you should jump into the center of the action, like when you're using your ultimate, but it shouldn't be your turn 2 move. Being a tank does mean you're more survivable, but it doesn't make you immortal. Mitigation and recovery only go so far, and a crippled tank is of no use to your team. Stick to cover as much as possible, and use your fair share of trickery to keep your enemies guessing. After all, the best way to stay alive is to simply not be in the spot your opponents attack. Stay healthy so you can disrupt your opponent's plans and position. Second, being a frontliner doesn't mean you can be irresponsible, and here's what I mean by that. You may be the first line of defense or offense, but you have a responsibility to your team to make sure they stay safe. Whether you're aggressively chasing a firepower character or defending to keep your own support safe, you need to ensure that you are doing your part to keep your allies alive. The firepower freelancers might get the flashy kills, but a good frontliner is what makes those kills possible, either by flushing out enemy freelancers or keeping allies in a good status to make those kills. A good frontliner is one that knows when to dive in and when to pull back, staying responsible and thoughtful to the team's overall mission. So now that we know what frontliners aren't, it's time that we discuss what frontliners are, or what they should be. I've used this word a few times already, but frontline freelancers are first and foremost disruptors. Trolls, ruiners, griefers, etc. Frontline freelancers are characters who strive to prevent the enemy team from accomplishing their goals. This could be a small goal like taking a power-up on the map, or a larger goal like executing a certain strategy, saving an ally, chasing a firepower or support enemy from their position, crippling enemy movement to cause them to be in a bad position. All of these and more are how tanks disrupt their opponents. Asana's root attack, Rampart's hook ability, and Bryn's shield knockback are all affect movement, while Rask and Phaedra both have abilities which disrupt enemy positioning. By keeping enemies on their toes and unable to get optimal firing positions, frontline characters keep their allies alive and healthy, ready to strike when an opponent makes a mistake. In summary, keep a few major factors in mind. First, know how aggressive and defensive each frontline freelancer is. Second, remember how your tank survives damage, either through damage mitigation or health recovery. Third, good tanks aren't irresponsible, greedy, or prone to believing that they are invincible. Finally, good tanks know how to best disrupt enemy plans and strategies, leading to enemy mistakes, healthy allies, and opportunities to capitalize on. With these principles in mind, you'll be in a good position to start tanking, no matter how much the metagame or characters of Atlas Reactor have changed. That's a brief introduction to the basics of frontline freelancers in Atlas Reactor. Be sure to check out my guides on firepower and support characters as well, and also check out the individual beginner's guides I've created for each freelancer. Thanks for tuning in, and have fun disrupting your opponents in Atlas Reactor. Thanks for watching Additional Pylons Games. Click one of the boxes to watch another video, and click the circle to subscribe and join the APG Zealots. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and share it with your friends. Comment below and I'll see you next time here on Additional Pylons Games.